I'm writing you now to introduce Ivy Rose, the latest artist on Lab78. I thought instead of telling you all I knew about Ivy, I would start with my wife's encounter who first discovered Ivy, and then I'll go on from there.
I was on YouTube watching a performance of Crimson and Clover when I noticed a video on the right-hand side where they suggest similar content, and I saw a photo of Ivy. It was a beautiful black and white photo of her, and she looked like Natalie Portman from Professional. And I was struck by her name, Ivy Rose, and her face, and it was her cover of Crimson and Clover, and I just clicked on it.
What was it about her name that made you click on it?
It was a cute name.
My wife, Gigi Rose Gray, the illustrator,
God.
I think when you looked across at that little thumbnail, you saw a bit of your name in it, didn't you? And you sort of thought a little bit of yourself as a dark teen yourself.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I don't know. I wasn't reading into it too much. But it was an impulsive click, I guess. And I was really struck by what emerged from this rather fragile, very young-looking girl. She had an extremely powerful voice, was very mesmerized, and I don't know, she just seemed almost entranced by her own music. And I thought it was special. Definitely there's a darkness that I found very appealing and unique maybe to her generation. But Ivy is an anomaly of her generation. She really follows her own, she has her own cultural world, and it's sort of living in the, parallel to the mainstream culture of, I guess, her generation, Gen Zers.
I too was struck by her melancholy and the deep loneliness in her eyes. On screen, she emanated an angelic quality. In the YouTube comments, you could see she had fans and they were so engaged with her. She was like a savior to them, bringing these songs from the past into a new light that made sense to them, where the originals would have fallen on deaf ears. I reached out to her at this time, but it was not for many months that we made a real connection. Once we had made that connection, I made a couple of backing tracks, ideas, basic things, and I collected some words on an old notebook I had. My wife and I flew to Houston, Texas, to stay for a week with the idea of meeting Ivy and taking her into the studio and making some music. We met at a little bar on the outskirts of Houston, on one of the areas not known as the dry areas where alcohol is prohibited. We came into a courtyard where Ivy was sitting with her then-boyfriend Joel. The two of them greeted us warmly, though nervously. As the night rolled on, we had some drinks and talked, and there was flowers in her voice, and joy and excitement and all the things you'd expect. The next morning, we rolled into the studio. Ivy was tentative at first, and it took some time to draw her back out from the person that we'd discovered late last night. But once she did start singing, she didn't stop. And we found those flowers again in her voice, resonating deeply. It was an amazing week of creativity. From there, I went back to Los Angeles and started putting together what I had recorded. There was about an hour's worth of songs in what we had initially done. Some had connected more easily than others, but all possessed a rare, strange beauty, like Ivy herself. Things changed, time wore on, and our schedules shifted. It wasn't for a year or more later that we managed to reconnect. This time, I brought Ivy out to Los Angeles and to stay at the house. We worked for 2 weeks. During that time, we saw a great change in Ivy as she rose from being a girl who had sung beautiful covers to an artist who was composing complex and powerfully challenging works of art. It was enough time to lay the foundations for what we have here on the EP. Once she left, I took the songs to New York and added drums and other instruments. A song like Skyscrapers, we had a kind of breakdown mutually in the studio. We'd been working so hard, so many late nights, and it was all getting too much. Ivy came up with a melody over a simple track, and it just soared above all else we had recorded.
For Skyscraper, it was as Nick says, a very simple track, simple chord progression, classic chord progression, and I just played it on guitar, and she reacted, and she seemed to love it. And then we just let her sing. There was no writing process in a conventional sense where you sit down with a pad and a pen and you work out your verse and your chorus and everything. It was just very fluid and beautiful, and it was a late night moment between all of us. It really took shape very quickly. We just edited a few bits together, and then we had it. I don't think we even changed many of the lyrics. So yeah, the greatest song that we've done came together very quickly.
We knew we had something special. These recordings represent a time and a place, but there's something universal about the way Ivy sings, the way she connects. She is a story in herself, and one I am so happy to share with all of you.